people kind of know that presence is a good thing. It's like having a nice smile, or having a spare hair grip in your bag. Ah, yeah, he's got presence, that's a good thing. They're not always so convinced that it's worth spending time and money training presence. They're not always convinced that you can train presence. I often hear it's something you either got or you haven't, something you're born with, like it's something genetic. It's not. You see, presence is a technique. And like any technique, if you apply yourself to learning the technique, you'll get better at stuff. If you train yourself in presence, you may not end up the most present person in the room, the most charismatic person in the room. Just as if you train your voice, you may not end up the greatest singer in the world, but you will get better at singing. And if you train in the techniques of presence, you will get better at being present. So what? I know presence is important. I spend my life training people to be present. I think it's really exciting when you see people really come to life, really unleash their power, start having attention paid to them, start being listened to. I know that's great. But a lot of people aren't so convinced that it's worth spending time on. So this is an abbreviated version of an article I've written to be published on Medium. As soon as it's out, I'll put a link in the comments before so you can read the full version. But the point of the article is very straightforward. I want to give you 8 direct, simple things that will improve, professionally or personally, if you choose to spend time enhancing, developing, training your presence. 1, you'll communicate better. Simple, really. Communication is about give and take. It's a conversation. It's not about just saying your stuff and going home. Real communication requires you to be present with the person you're communicating with. It's about knowing when what you're saying is landing and when it's falling flat, when it's time to drop in a joke or when it's time not to drop in a joke, when your audience is with you or when you've lost them. If you're not going to be present as you communicate, you might as well just send an email to people, because communication is a living thing. And for it to be alive, it requires your attention. Number 2, you'll connect better. Well, this follows on from number 1. Good communication needs good connection. You see, most of the time when we are communicating, we think that people are listening to our words. It's not actually the meaning of your words that carry most of the meat of a communication. Exactly how much is body language, exactly how much is tone, and exactly how much is the actual meaning of the words is a matter of debate, and quite an interesting one. But almost everybody agrees that the majority of what we get from another person when we're engaged in a conversation comes from how they use their voice and how they use their body, more than what it is that they actually say. So if you're not present with someone as they're talking to you, really paying attention to them, you risk entirely missing the meaning of what they're saying, the meaning beyond the meaning, not just hearing the meaning of the words, but actually understanding the meaning of a communication. And if you're the one doing the communicating and you're not present, your mind is wandering off and thinking about something else, you lay yourself wide open to misinterpretation, because you may well find that your words conflict with your tone or your body language. You open yourself up to ambiguity. Authentic communication happens when all 3 levels of meaning come together. The meaning of the words, the appropriate tone and rhythm of voice, and the appropriate use of body. It's a web of tiny cues and responses. That's what communication comes from. Now, to be part of that web requires connection. You have to be connected to the other person, picking up and giving tiny signals. Connection happens in the present. You know when somebody's not present with you. You know when they're disconnected from you, when they're thinking about something else. Problem is, they know when you're not connecting with them either. You don't get to fake this stuff. If you want to connect with someone, you need to be genuinely present with them. 3, you'll be more confident. Lack of confidence is usually about what if. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? What if I screw up? Confidence comes partly from experience and preparation, but mainly confidence comes from trusting that you'll be capable of responding to whatever is thrown at you. I mean, you can plan for the expected, but by definition you can't plan for the unexpected. Confidence comes from knowing you'll be able to deal with the unexpected when, as it always does, it appears in the moment. You can't predict the unexpected, otherwise it wouldn't be unexpected. So to encounter the unexpected, you need to be paying attention to the present moment. And confidence comes from knowing that whatever comes up in the present moment is something that you will be able to respond to appropriately. Being present allows you to replace the what if voice with the what is voice. What is happening now? What is being said or asked of me now? What is the best way to respond now? How do you respond to the curveballs that are thrown at you? Be open, receptive and aware. Be present. 4, you'll be calmer. Focusing on the present stops you focusing on the past, on possible futures, or on alternative imaginary realities. You know, the kind of thing, why didn't I? That's the past. I wonder if she will. That's a potential future. Or I wish that I was. That's an alternate reality. Each thought you have, and every time you jump from thought to thought, it has a price. Unnecessary thoughts use mental resources. And if you use those mental resources on useless things, they're not available for you to use on important things. As you jump from past to future to alternative reality back to the present, it's exhausting. It drains energy from your system. If you train your mind to stay focused on the present, it saves you energy, and as a consequence, you feel calmer. Calm is a really good place to make good decisions from. 5, you'll be more authentic. Now, in some ways, this is a tricky one. I'm never entirely convinced about the idea of the authentic self. Is there an authentic you? Well, we all have many avatars. I'm one me with my parents, another with a friend, a third with a child, multiple versions of me in different professional contexts. Is there an authentic you? Well, certainly you experience yourself as authentic sometimes. There are times when you feel you're not faking anything and you're not projecting some image that you want others to buy into. There are times you're not defending yourself or hiding from other people's opinions. Maybe authenticity comes when there is a synchronicity between your inner experience, your immediate environment, and the task that you are actually engaged in. Now, if you're not fully present, you can't really absorb and respond to the details of what's happening. And so the appropriate you, the appropriate avatar of you can't appear. You might be defensive when there's actually nothing to defend yourself against, or you might be inappropriately jokey because you haven't noticed there's an undercurrent of seriousness in the room. Finding the most authentic way to respond to a situation needs you accurately to read that situation. And the way to judge and know how authentically to respond is to open up to a situation as it unfolds. Put aside assumptions, expectations, fears. That's almost a textbook definition of presence. Being able and willing to open up to and respond to direct experience. 6. You'll make better decisions. Well, this follows on from being more authentic. Authenticity is about a real version of you connecting with what's really happening, and that's when good decisions happen. Of course, you might plan, anticipate, or predict before you start something, especially if you know you're going to have to make some decisions. But the final test of the rightness of any decision comes at the moment that that decision has to be made. Sometimes the context is not what you anticipated, so the decision you thought you were going to make is no longer appropriate. Sometimes you get new information during a conversation, and even if that doesn't change the decision you were going to make, perhaps it changes how and when you communicate it. Sometimes the unexpected happens. Suddenly a decision is forced on you and you're on the spot. How do you make a good decision? Well, again, you notice what's actually happening and what it demands of you. You put aside fear, self-doubt, defensiveness, trying to please everybody. You get a detailed understanding of what's happening, what's being said and what's not being said, and you use that as a basis for sound, appropriate, sensitive decision making. Notice reality, then respond. It's the tiny and often non-verbal details of a situation that make the difference between effective, appropriate decision making and blundering insensitively on with your original plans. You miss those tiny details if you're lost in your thoughts or focusing on the past or the future. Decisions happen in the present, so you need to be in the present. Number 7. You'll learn more deeply. You learn by experience. The only way we learn anything is by experience. Even reading a book is an experience. It's just an experience called reading a book. Well, the more focused and sustained your attention, the deeper your experience will be. The deeper your experience is, the better you're learning. Not convinced? Try listening to a podcast about quantum mechanics while also watching a movie on Netflix. Try learning origami while cooking your evening meal. Doesn't work, does it? Learning requires deep, sustained attention. Quality of learning depends on quality of experience. Quality of experience depends on you being present with what you're doing and sustaining that attention for extended periods of time. The more the presence, the richer the experience. The richer the experience, the deeper the learning. Simple. And number 8. You will collaborate better. This is pretty obvious. If you want to collaborate with someone, be open to what they're offering. If you want someone to pay attention to you, how about you start by paying attention to them? You want effective communication? Quieten the noise in your head and notice what's being said, the verbal and the non-verbal. Even if you're collaborating asynchronously, in other words, you send something to somebody, they send something back, at the moment that you encounter what they've sent, try to clear the noise from your head and be present with what they've sent you. That way you might see to the best of your ability what they're actually communicating, rather than simply see your assumptions and expectations. So there's 8 things that will change in your professional and personal life if you choose to pay attention to enhancing your presence. How do you enhance your presence? Well, that's another whole story. I've just published an ebook on the 8 principles of presence. You can find that on Amazon, or drop me a message and I can send you a link to a recorded version of it. But I'm going to give you a very, very simple understanding of how to enhance your presence. Why simple? Well, the architect Tessinov once wrote, the simplest form is not always the best, but the best is always simple. Simple is sometimes just really good. Here's my simple approach to being present. If you want to be more present, be less distracted. Lovely talking to you.